I'm about to leave the TA in Santa Rosa, New Mexico, and I have to buy fuel. So now we do the little calculation. I like having the electronic logbook, you know, because the computer logbook, I can go back anytime and check my mileage and stuff like that. So now I saw that last time I fueled was in Albuquerque, New Mexico, and then of course I went empty at 92k an hour, 56 miles per hour, all the way to Douglas, Arizona, and I used setting 2 on my Caterpillar power harness. Then I got loaded with this container I have now, and I changed the setting to 5. That's about what, if 10 is 80 horsepower, so roughly 40 horsepower. Right, and now we'll see. And now I have my mileage here. 774, 407, that's today, minus 773, 493, which is what, 914, 914, 914 miles. So now let's go see how many gallons the tanks will take to full, and then we'll know. But of course, half of the way I was driving pretty much empty, so it has to be at least 7. Let's go check it out. And the pump stop at 126.84 gallons. So now we take 914 miles divided by 12684. 7.2 miles per gallon. US miles, US gallons. No BS Canadian gallons. 7.2. So which means that we're still doing good, because I thought something was really bad with the engine. It's the load, the weight of the load, the terrain, the wind, and the temperature. This time it was all warm. See, there you go. And I drive slow. So we're still doing good. My 2004 International is still okay. I-40 eastbound, mile marker 289, New Mexico. So I did this hand drive bypass yesterday, right? Because it was leaking all the time. And the first thing I noticed in the morning is that my air gauge 1 was almost empty. That did not happen before. Normally I had problems with air gauge 2, like secondary airlines, which is suspension, you know, fifth wheel, stuff like that. So I got a bit worried, but then the pressure went up when I started the truck. And I went to the shop where the guy who did this, but it was 7:45 local time, and he was still closed. And I didn't want to wait, so I left. But now I'm checking out my gauge as I drive, and they seem steady. And the best part is they don't fluctuate as before. Like especially the secondary gauge used to go up and down, right? So now I think my compressor works maybe, I don't know, 5 times less than before, which should save me some fuel. And the compressor, because you know, if it works all the time, you can lose it, right? It gets too hot inside. And I just passed Tucumcari, New Mexico, a famous town to me, because I heard a nice trucker's song about it, where a guy was talking about various towns he visited, and this Tucumcari was one of them. Yeah, the phone just rang. A guy called me in response to my Kijiji ad. Wants to know more about my... it was funny. He says, hey, hi, you have a flatbed, 53 flatbed with tandem axles? And I say, well, for some reason, you know, I'm thinking like load, delivery, Landstar, so I was pretty sure this guy was a Landstar agent, like Landstar broker, right? And I thought he wanted me to move a load for him, right? Because that's what usually happens when they see me on their computer. I'm pretty sure I'm gonna get calls from someone who who has a load from Sudbury, Ontario, because I saw there were some loads on the board from Sudbury back to Arizona. And I thought this guy was the agent, and he says, you have a 53 tandem flat. And I say, no, I got a 53 tri-tandem step deck. And he says, no, I need a 53 tandem flat. I said, well, I do have a flat, but I don't use it, so I took it off the Landstar system. And the guy says, wait, I'm calling in response to your ad. I said, oh, Jesus, okay, sorry. I thought you were the broker, so he's going to send me an email, like with his basically a blank email. I said, I'll send you the payout amount. See if they can do that, because a lot of people don't like that, you know, it's still a bit more expensive than the market value. But it's a nice trailer, I don't know, the 53 flat. The floor of the trailer is in better shape than this 6 months old step deck's floor. Because if you remember, I had that disaster with scrap metal in Alberta. Just first month, and I screwed up my floor and put a hole in it. But, you know, actually, well, I wanted to mention that now. Down the road, I don't care that much. You know, when your trailer is past, I don't know, maybe 3, 4, 5 months, yeah, you don't care about the floor. You know, as long as there's no holes. So I could have put that container on the floor, but actually, those steamers, they do not only do they protect the floor, but unlike what many people think, they make the container more stable. Because the metal on the floor of the container is less prone to move when it sits on wood. You know, if it sits on the aluminum floor of my trailer, then it becomes slippery. That's not safe. You know, just from that standpoint, safety, it makes sense to use timbers on the metal. Yeah, a flatbed just passed me. He's in front of that truck in the distance. You cannot see it, but the guy was flying probably like, I don't know, 70 miles an hour, which is legal here. But there was some knocking sound, you know, very loud knocking sound, like and I looked to my left, and as he was passing, I noticed that his rear wheel on the passenger side, not just the tire, but the wheel was vibrating and like going in like this, you know, and like very noticeable. So either the bolts are unscrewed or he left a couple of bolts, but the guy just kept going. I started my CB, you know, try to get him on the CB, but he did not respond. Well, I said, if you can hear me, you're gonna lose that wheel on the passenger side rear axle. And that's how accidents happen. It was moving, not just the tire, you know, not just the tire, which can be like uneven sometimes, right? And you can see it makes that number 8 when it rotates, but this was the wheel. And here's that guy, he's parked on the ramp. I guess someone else told him. That flatbed truck. Maybe he'll notice that wheel. Yeah, something happened here as well. Check this out. We see lots of lights. Yeah, the truck flipped over in the middle. Wow, they're transferring the load. The trailer's on the ground. And the truck was a white Kenworth. What's going on here? Man, I'm leaving New Mexico, land of enchantment. Texas state line. What? Entering Central Time Zone. I thought I was entering Oklahoma. Wait a second. Something wrong with my geography knowledge here. Yeah, so this is Texas, the northern part of Texas. And by the way, the wind became from the side, from the front. And I started the day with 60 Fahrenheit or almost 15 Celsius. Now it's -2 Celsius, so 29. Feels kind of like winter again. Just spent half an hour with my customs paperwork. You know, it's Amarillo, Texas, Petro. I just stopped here for lunch. and decided to check my email because the agent, Landstar agent, promised to send me the ACE, the electronic manifest, like a cover page, just one sheet. And I check my email, there's nothing. And I call him and I say, okay, you know, at least tell me who's the customs broker is. Like, if you cannot do it, I'll do it myself. So he tells me the name of the customs broker and the phone number, and I say, okay, I'm gonna call Landstar and get that ACE from them. And he started saying something, I just hang up, because I've been on the road for like, what, this is third day now, I still cannot get an electronic manifest from the guy, right? And actually he made it, because I got a confirmation from Landstar, like automatic message saying that your trip sheet number was approved for this trip crossing in Sault Ste. Marie, Canada. It's just, all I need is that he forgot to print out the piece of paper, right? And I called Landstar, and right away they emailed me the missing part, and which reminded me why it's still good to work for a big company. Now imagine if I was independent, right? And this guy was my freight broker. Like, there's nowhere to go. You know, you have to deal with whatever card you've been dealt. In this case, a broker who's very busy, or maybe he does not know how to do it, you know, like the electronic manifest. See, at least in this case I have a recourse. I can call the corporate, Landstar corporate. They have a big customs department and they're always willing to help. Okay, now let's go check my oh, that's something familiar. Look over there, the guy is hauling some farm tractors. Oh, cat. Nah, I never had those. I had John Deere, and I think that's about it. My container has not moved. Look at my neighbor, a beautiful multi-axle Trail King, and the guy just went, I think he went to wash his truck. Huge Peterbilt with 4 axles, or like the front axle was, I don't know, 20,000 pounds. Yeah, so far so good. Yeah, some of these straps are, you know, already old. You have to change them periodically. So even if I lose a strap, because I didn't put that, the bags are okay. I didn't put that half a strip, half a twist. But you see how I raised the right to 7? See how tall now the trailer sits? Before it was somewhere here. This part was somewhere here. That's why it's not a very good idea to run like this all the time. Yeah, the padlock I just locked, you know. Screw this. You guys okay there? Alright. I didn't even look inside. Oh, by the way, and I moved the chain. See, so the chain now points pretty much straight down, and I hooked it up to this thing here, so which is beautiful. So now it holds this in place, and the rear of the container cannot move anyway. All right, let's go get something to eat. Anyway, one viewer asked me about if it's possible to hook up some kind of a smartphone with the application, you know, to read more data from the computer of the engine, and this is what you need. Like, at least in my 2004 International, it's this kind of plug that sits right next to the ignition lock. And you see, I'm using this Gear Master, which is basically gear shift indicator, but it also shows me my digital tachometer. Well, it's off now, but see, that came already with this cable, but I know for sure that this cable is very expensive. You can get special software to adjust the settings on your computer. I think Caterpillar charges about $1,500 or $2,000, but then you have to pay as much for the cable, which would basically hook up to USB port of your computer. I'm about to leave Flying J in Sayre, Oklahoma, and take a look at my neighbors.
To the left is a classic XL. I always like these trucks, you know, Freightliner, classic. Too bad they don't make them anymore. Operated by Cargill. And I remember when I moved to Moscow, Russia, what was it, 1992, from a small Ukrainian town, and I tried to find a good job, and I went to interview for these guys. And of course, the first rule of looking for a job is you have to know something about the company where you want to work, right? But I had no clue, so I show up there. I never heard of these guys, right? And the guy, a very pleasant young American gentleman, because, you know, back then I still spoke English. I mean, I already spoke English. And this is Moscow, Russia, and they were opening, I think, like a representative office, so they were looking for some English-speaking people in for their sales. And he says, you heard about us, right? You know what we do. And I'm like, not exactly, no. He said, you never heard about Cargill? I said, no. And then, of course, later I found out that these are the guys that, I think it's something to do with soy or something, you know. But anyway, I pretty much lost the guy as soon as he learned that I had no idea what they were making or doing. But I wanted to work for them, I lost him. That just reminded me something. And to my right is a truck many people find attractive. It's Lone Star, and you see on top it says Grumpy. So evidently the guy who owns this truck is grumpy, so you gotta be careful. But one thing that few people realize, of course it's a nice looking truck, but there's two strikes against it. First, everything on the hood is made of plastic. All those silver looking pieces, they're plastic. And secondly, because the radiator sits at an angle, the engine is pushed pretty much into the cab. And you cannot get this truck with a big C50, with a big Cummins, let's say 600 horsepower, you know. You can only get it with a small engine because there's not enough room under the hood. In comparison, the my truck, or the old like the classic 9900 International, you can get with any engine up to 600 horsepower, up to 2,000 pounds of torque. So, and I bet that a lot of mechanics are probably cursing when they work on this truck, because it's really very tight under the hood, you know. It's not a very mechanic friendly truck. If I were to choose between these two, you know, I would choose this one. I mean, if I was a mechanic, I would choose this one, because this one, you open the hood, hey, you can, you know, you can ride a horse in there. Alright, what do we have here? Okay, still 391 kilometers, Jesus, still 4 hours to Tulsa, Oklahoma. This is I-40 somewhere in Oklahoma. Oh, mile marker 80, eastbound. And it's already kind of getting dark, because I lost 1 hour. Now I'm on Central Time, Chicago, Illinois. When I called the guy, another Lancer driver who drives an old Freightliner Classic, that we went together to Washington with that big robot, right? And then he did the same locomotive down to what was it, Farmington, New Mexico. I drove down to Arizona, picked up this container, now I'm driving back. I called him, I said, what are you doing? You found a load? He says, no. I said, where are you? He says, Amarillo, Texas. And I just passed through that, right? So it turns out he was not able to find anything. He just, when did we unload? I think Monday, right? Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. Yeah, so Wednesday I was in Douglas, Arizona, loading. So this guy just couldn't find anything, and he just drove down to Amarillo, Texas, and now it's, of course, it's Friday. When I talked to him, it was already 5 o'clock Eastern, so 4 Central, but he said there's nothing on the board, and he's from Ontario, so he's trying to go back to Ontario. He doesn't want to go to Western Canada, and
and there's always plenty of loads going that way. And he says, I'll wait till next week. See, and that's what was happening to me when I just started with Landstar, but this guy, he's been doing this for 2 years, but that's a very dangerous thing. When you go somewhere and then you sit there for a week because you're losing money, you're not making any money, right? And I would do this before. I would go to some desperate area, one-way freight only. That's why now I was trying to book, because I was going to these, Washington and Arizona, no, Washington and New Market. They're not exactly, good areas for freight. So I made sure that I found my return load while I was still doing the previous load. And that's always a good idea, especially when you are a Canadian driver working for a US carrier such as Landstar. See, now this guy lost a week, and I know Mondays are slow, so I guarantee it he's not gonna find anything on Monday. So maybe there'll be something on Tuesday, but usually the best day is Wednesday. And we're not talking about US shipments like inside US, I'm talking about shipments from US to Eastern Canada, which are kind of difficult to find. Well, at least the fuel here went down. This is so northern Texas, northern Oklahoma. Check this out. Truck parking, 66 Phillips truck stop, $3.69 per US gallon. So that's less than $1 per liter. Excellent. God bless America.